gentlemen, it is perfectly all right. You may enter the Boadicea Club. We women will not bite you.
Thank you, Lady Albany. In fact, I was merely diverted by the wonderful antiques you have gathered here. It is Watson who, I fear, feels a little like a fish out of water.
Oh, come along, Dr. Watson. We are not the bacchantes of Greek legend that discover male intruders at their secret rites and tear them limb from limb.
No, of course not. I was just fascinated, too, by the antiques, don't you know?
Lady Albany, the body, I take it, was discovered...
Right here, Mr. Holmes.
Of course. Aligned with those symbols on the walls, north and south.
Oh, that is correct. How did you guess?
There was an element of a ritual in the death. See how these candlesticks are neatly aligned? These napkins folded here, the chairs on either side straightened. There is still a mark where the high pile of the carpet was raised by the pulling of the chair as it was repositioned. I have been to enough clubs to know how randomly the furniture is usually placed. That is part of the appeal of a club. It is a home away from home. I am certain that this club, albeit a feminine one, is no exception to that rule.
You are right. I had not noticed.
Everything is just as it was? Nothing has been touched?
Nothing.
Might I trouble you, Lady Albany, to turn that gas lamp up?
Of course. Have you found anything of interest?
Possibly. Time will tell. The windows were locked, I take it?
Yes.
All the members that were here yesterday evening has been assembled here this evening, is that correct?
Well, as you requested, it is 8 o'clock. At 8 in the evening we dine together in the main hall. We are served by one maid, Miss Dora Blunt. We retire to this room at approximately 10 at night for a sherry and a cigarette or two, or in the case of Madame Ivanov, a hookah.
Oh, I say, women do know how to enjoy themselves. A hubbly-bubbly pipe, eh? Quotes me in mind of my time in India.
Yesterday evening we had just sat down to dine when Madame Clarete complained of a sudden debilitating headache and retired to repose here in the trophy room. We carried on as normal, and when I entered here at 10 p.m, I was the one to discover her, here, dead, poisoned. There was no mark on her body, and the fingernails were grey. The lips were quite blackened. But you have already seen the body at the morgue, Mr. Holmes.
Oh, ghastly business.
Did any of the ladies who dined here yesterday leave the dining room at any one time?
Well, after some discussion between ourselves, we have agreed that all of us left the dining room at some point or other during the evening.
In that regard, Lady Albany, I regret to say that you are all suspects.
Well, exactly. All of this is very bad for the club, and that is why we have such hope and faith in you, Mr. Holmes.
And how do the ladies feel about the male detective? Do they share your faith and hope?
Well, when we voted to allow you in, some were vehemently opposed. It was a close-run thing, a split decision, in fact.
And might I ask who cast the carrying vote in your favour?
Well, the founding members swung the issue and allowed yourself and Dr. Watson into our club.
Founding member?
Well, myself, of course.
You honour us, and I assure you we will not fall short of your expectations. You may ask the ladies to come through one at a time, and if you'd be so kind to give me a brief introduction to them.
Of course.
You know, don't fuss, dear. I'm all right. Not dead yet, eh? That's it. Over to my favourite chair. That's it. Oh, at last. My old legs are finished, but my mind's as sharp as a pin.
Mr. Holmes, if I may introduce you to Lady Dithering-Tottering of the Cumberland-Totterings.
Enemies of Parliament since 1645.
Quite.
Lady Dithering-Tottering, may I ask what opinion you held of the deceased?
Oh, has somebody died? I'm not dead yet, you know.
One of your club members, Madame Clarete. My colleague is asking whether you had an opinion of her.
Was she a Republican?
I'm afraid I don't know.
Well, let me put it another way. Was she at Waterloo?
The battle?
No, the railway station. Of course I mean the battle, you old fool.
Oh, fool, I say.
Were you at Waterloo?
The battle or the railway station?
Cheeky pup. Now get me a drop of sherry. I think it's time for my nap.
Under normal circumstances, I would not immediately dismiss anyone from my investigations, but in the case of Lady Dithering-Tottering, I think we may make an exception.
She is 104 years of age, Mr. Holmes.
104? Well, bless my soul. 104. Well, if she did do it, then I'm sure that in her confusion she would have killed the wrong person. I doubt if she can see beyond her arm's length.
Quite so. And the next member?
Mr. Holmes, this is Miss Clarete, the private secretary to Madame Calicot.
Mr. Holmes?
I wish merely to know how long you have worked for the deceased and in what capacity.
Only 3 weeks. Her previous secretary succumbed to consumption and contracted on a damp archaeological dig. I transcribed her notes. Her husband, the acclaimed archaeologist, had left a good deal of unpublished findings. She took me on because, I suppose, she thought I would work without complaint. I am an orphan, you see, and have no one to guard my interests.
I see. Was she herself an archaeologist?
If one goes by diplomas and membership of venerable societies which exclude women, I would have to answer in the negative.
A gifted amateur, then?
Like yourself, Mr. Holmes.
Mr. Holmes, if I may introduce you to Dr. Savage, a research toxicologist at the St. Bartholomew's Hospital.
Mr. Holmes.
My colleague, Dr. Watson.
Doctor?
Toxicology, an interesting line.
Yes, although we emphasise the need to cure patients from the ill effects of poisons rather than administer them to victims in pursuit of homicidal experimentation.
But your scientific knowledge would be of great advantage if you ever had to... if you wanted to... theoretically, that is.
Dr. Watson, if I wanted to poison somebody, my knowledge of chemical toxins is so sophisticated that I could kill them in such a way as to make the death appear absolutely natural, with no chance of any suspicion whatsoever falling on me. Need I go further?
No, of course not.
Whoever poisoned Madame Calicot, if indeed this is not a case of suicide, was a heavy-handed amateur with a penchant for the theatrical.
My conclusion exactly. Thank you, Dr. Savage.
Her ladyship, Madam Chairwoman, says to bring these in here. It's a sherry for the members and brandy for the gentlemen.
No, Watson. That won't be necessary for the time being. We must all keep a clear head if we are to ask questions and answer them with precision.
Do as you like, but it clears me throat. Good for me bronchitics. Dr. Savage told me so.
Mr. Holmes, this is Dora Blunt, the maid of all work at the Boadicea Club. I regret to say she is, as we all are, acting a little out of character. Mild shock because of the dreadful circumstances.
Oh, me bronchitics!
As a doctor myself and general practitioner with much experience of bronchitis, I would suggest moderation in the matter of alcoholic consumption.
What? Man, doctor? I should cocoa.
Miss Blunt, is there anywhere on the premises where poisons are kept?
In the cellar, rat poison, yes. And a little vitriol in the kitchen as a mild sort of lubrication, you know?
She means as a laxative, Mr. Holmes.
Quite. And you have used the rat poison?
Every day, but only on the rats. Madame Calicot was 1 in a million. When I find the man has poisoned her, I'll spike his drink all right. She was a diamond. When I find the man has did it, I'll slit his throat. What do you think of that, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, eh? Put that in your pipe and smoke it. I'll slit his throat.
Enough, Dora. These gentlemen are guests in our club, and we will receive them with dignity, even if we must tolerate them with reluctance.
Lady Persimmon Smythe, it is an honour. I surmise that you were one of those who voted against my being allowed to enter the club today?
It was not a secret ballot. The truth will out.
I am ashamed of nothing.
The truth, madam, is above all things, politics, gender and crime. All pale and shrivel before the burning torch of truth. And that is what I am here to determine.
Hear, hear.
You have recently become the chairman of this club, Lady Persimmon, is that right?
Yes.
And one assumes that there was a popular ballot that made you so?
Indeed.
Was the vote unanimous in your favour?
No, not unanimous.
Did another candidate stand for the post?
Madam Calicut stood for it. God rest her soul. She would have won too if she hadn't been betrayed by her secretary.
I merely voted for the best candidate as I saw it.
Traitorous!
Dora, that is really quite enough. Go to your duties immediately. That is, Mr. Holmes, if she is no longer needed.
If I had a vote instead of being a dog's body, things would have been different.
But things are not different, so remember your place.
Ladies, if we might all be seated. I think Dora can distribute some sherry. I think at this point we could all do with a little refreshment.
Topping idea. Come, ladies.
You are quite right, Watson. There is still one member not present. Who might that be, Lady Albany?
She stands before you, Mr. Holmes, the final club member, a veritable enigma, the clairvoyant and Swiss heiress, Madame Ivanov.
Mr. Sherlock Holmes of Baker Street, you are well. You are at ease. Your Christmas dinner consisted of goose and pudding too. No, wait. No pudding and no custard.
Well, I'll be damned. I was snookered. That's right, Holmes. The woman's a clairvoyant, all right.
Patience, Watson. Christmas dinner usually consists of goose, does it not? Hardly a revelation of biblical proportions.
You are right, Mr. Holmes. These are mere visions of everyday irrelevancies. I save my real gift for other purposes. Have you ever talked to the dead? At a séance? To the departed spirits?
I have little wish to do anything of the sort.
How easily you could solve your cases if you could, though, no?
And has your extraordinary talent given you any insight into the circumstances of Madame Calicut's unfortunate end?
Perhaps. Perhaps not.
Then until they do, we will continue with my method.
As you wish. Besides, I grow tired. I must rest.
Lady Albany, if you could tell us in exact detail what happened last night from the hour of 8 o'clock.
Madame Calicut complained of a headache and left her dinner to sit in the dark and quiet of this room. The body was discovered at 10 p.m. after dinner was finished. She was lying here in the posture of an Egyptian mummy,
With her arms folded across her breast, holding the sceptre of royalty in the right hand.
The sceptre in this case being the mace of official duty in the Boadicea Club.
How on earth did you know that?
This cabinet is rarely opened. Dust has accumulated on this sill by the glass door. It has, however, been opened very recently and the mace replaced rather hastily. It is not quite straight, a fact given away by the imprint of light dust left by the previous positioning. An oversight which would have been corrected by one of the members, since this mace represented the club's ethos and integrity. It was a symbol, like the fasces of Rome, sceptre of a king or queen.
It was I who replaced it, Mr. Holmes. I am ashamed to admit it now, but its presence in the hand of a deceased proved that a point was being made of some sort.
Yes, either that she had betrayed the club, that she had betrayed the principles and ethics of the Boadicea Club and had been punished for doing so, or that she should not have run for the chairmanship and that she was being killed as an example to others not to do the same in the future.
Nonsense. Absolute fabby-faffle.
Murderers! You killed her, Madam Chairman, with all your fancy back chat.
Silence, cur.
Ladies, please! Silence! Order! I did not found this club to be a nest of bickering witches. but to Mount Ida, where feminine grace grows in its true potential. In the name of Boadicea, I implore you, order at once!
May I ask, Lady Albany, if you disturbed anything else?
Nothing.
Now, think carefully. The mace in the hand, was it firmly gripped?
Yes.
Watson, if the deceased held the mace as she died, is it likely it would have remained in her grip after death?
The body loosens at death, the grip is relaxed.
Please be so good as to lie down, Watson.
I beg your pardon?
Lie down, boy. Now, Madam Chairwoman, may I be allowed to borrow the mace for a moment? I mean to prove a point in the investigation?
Of course.
Hold it tight, Watson. Cross your chest. Now be so good as to imagine that you have been taken poison and would die for me. Would you?
I shall endeavour to do my best. I am dead now, Holmes.
Is that really the best you can do?
I have stopped breathing, you know.
If you are dead, what other characteristics are there? Relax, man. They say the dead enjoy eternal slumber. Rest in peace, Watson. Relax. Ah, you see? The mace rolled away because the hands relax in death. However, after rigor mortis sets in as the body stiffens, the mace could be picked up by the murderer and replaced in the hands of the deceased.
May I get up now?
Thank you, Watson. Madame Cullicut did not commit suicide. She did not adopt the romanticized pose of a modern-day Cleopatra. No, the mace was placed in her slowly stiffening fingers by...
Placed by the murderer, the last person to see her alive and the first person to see her dead. You, Albany, you hated me, Lady Cullicut, didn't you? Hated her for years.
Stop it! Stop it, I say!
Hated? Is this true? Was there cause for enmity?
It is true. We were rivals in love for the same young man. It was 40 years ago at Oxford University. We were girls, merely 21 years of age. We both loved Peter. That is Peter Cullicut, Professor Cullicut. I cannot lie. He chose her over me. It was a great humiliation. There was pain, jealousy, a feeling of inferiority. If I had killed her then, Mr. Holmes, 40 years ago, then Dora Blunt's argument might warrant some attention. But why would I wait almost half a century to vent my spleen? Peter is long dead. We have all lost our youth. And jealousy, like pain, fades with time, you know.
Quite. And your relationship with Madame Cullicut was civil?
Perfectly. All can bear witness to that. Besides, I am a grandmother with a family, husband, children and grandchildren of my own. I would more likely commit murder over some ruined chintz curtains than over an ancient affair of the heart.
You have no heart, murderess. Yours is the foulest, basest motive of them all.
I must insist on silence. This is not an attempt at mob justice, but an investigation. One which I might remind you as a club have agreed to. If you wish me to proceed, I must have cooperation.
All right, play your little game, see if I can.
Now, Dora Blunt, you have been so bold as to accuse your mistress and attribute to her a motive. I feel I must mention the other prerequisite of the murderer's wherewithal, that is opportunity. As the one serving the meal last night, it was you who had an opportunity to leave the banquet, come in here and poison Madame Cullicut.
How dare you!
I suggest that going by any ordinary assumption, you, Dora Blunt, are the prime suspect.
No!
And you alone, from whom she would have accepted it without suspicion. She had a headache. Did you bring her a tincture or a concoction to ameliorate it? Did you poison her?
No! I loved her. I mean, she did a lot of good to me. She did. Saw me right. Treated me kind. I loved her like a mother. I would never hurt her. Oh, she was all I cared about in this snowy club. I just want her back. I just want her back.
Now, at last, I think we are making some progress.
That's quite all right, Dora. It's nerves, Mr. Holmes. Shock.
Quite so, don't you think, Holmes, that we should take a rest from questioning until tomorrow?
I fear tomorrow will be too late, Watson. No, we must reach a conclusion tonight. Dr. Savage,
Yes.
you were the first to analyse the body,
Yes.
and it was your opinion that it was a case of suicide?
Yes.
Why?
You have heard that the body was laid out in the manner of an Egyptian princess in a sarcophagus. Well, I noticed the ring that she wore, the Egyptian one. It was open. It was a poisoner's ring with a small compartment to hide poison. Surely you saw it when you examined the body at the morgue?
No. The ring had been removed by one of the club members prior to the body's movement to the morgue. Somebody had thought it advantageous to tamper with the evidence.
Removed? Which of us would do such a thing?
We will soon determine who.
The murderer, of course.
Whoever it was did not succeed in hiding the evidence because here it is.
I say, well done.
But where did you find it, Mr. Holmes, and when?
It was hidden, rather clumsily, on top of this cabinet, obviously in great haste. I found it whilst you were turning up the lamp, Lady Albany.
So the murderer poisoned Madame Cullicut and hid the evidence?
No, not the murderer.
Why not?
Because this ring does not contain poison. The murderer would have known that. Therefore, the person who hid the ring was not the murderer. Here, please indulge me and tell me what you smell in the hidden compartment of the ring.
Cloves.
I don't know, clothes, I think.
Oil of clothes, I should say. Yes, oil of clothes.
Exactly my analysis. Oil of clothes. Madame Cullicut had complained of a headache brought on by a toothache. The most common treatment to numb the pain from toothache is?
Oil of clothes, of course.
And commonly available at any apothecary. Hardly a poison.
Then why pull the ring from her finger and hide it if it contains no poison?
It is the ring itself that is important in this context. Not Egyptian at all, but from an archaic Greek tomb. More specifically, a Mycenaean tomb. And plainly etched into the lid is a symbol. The double-headed axe. Am I right, Miss Clarete?
I suppose so.
You alone knew the value of this ring. Is that why you hid it?
Partly, yes. You see, Madame Cullicut had borrowed the ring from a private collection, purely for the purposes of study, you understand.
Borrowed? Do you mean purloined?
She would have returned it had it not been for her tragic death.
And you thought that you would put it aside in case questions were asked. Her reputation as an amateur scholar was precarious enough. No good that she should be perceived as a thief too, eh?
She was a woman, Mr. Holmes, in the hallowed halls of classics and archaeology, the preserves of the masculine sex, and that was viewed as a crime in itself. She had fought hard to win the respect, and all of her hard work would have been obliterated by this minor tawdry scandal of a purloined ring. How those oafs in Oxford would have seized upon it.
Yes, pigs!
You took the ring whilst you conveyed her dead body out of the ambulance carriage, is that not so?
Yes.
Did you see Madame Cullicut between the hours of 8 and 10?
I came in to see if she was recovered at about 9 o'clock. I looked in here and it was dark. I fancied I saw her sitting here, immobile. I called her name gently and she did not answer. There was no response, so I thought I would let her sleep and left.
She hated you. Who were you? Nobody. Just some stuck-up little secretary spending all your time with her, flattering her, playing up to her with your pretty little girly ways. Jezebel, traitorous.
Dora Blunt, I have warned you once. You alone are not a member of this club, being its sole servant and factotum. I suppose that means you do not feel bound by its precepts?
Precepts, defects. You won't convict me with your fancy word, nor confuse me neither with your rules and regulations.
I have had as much as I can stand. Vacate this room at once, Dora Blunt.
You don't have to tell me twice, all of you. You all had it in for her. Men, stay here with your fancy man detective.
If you don't mind, Mr. Holmes, it is about time I gave the ladies a reminder of our founding principles. Remember, sister, you are blessed. Wherever females are addressed, you are the builder of the nest, the first and purest of the best. And when man puts us to the test, you must never be distressed. Remember, sister, daughter, mother, we must support and help each other, that as a sister female nation, against man's foul discrimination, we pick our fights and never run, and Boadicians, every one.
Thank you. Very enlightening.
I say, very admirable, I'm sure. Good show and good luck to you, what?
It is clear that the murder would be anathema to any of you unless Madam Cullicut had breached the rules of your order in some way. Hence the mace in her hand, a reminder of the rod of judgment to those who are left here as a sinner passes away into the world beyond.
Call not upon the dead unless you are prepared for their answerings. Disturb them not, lest they disturb you. The powers are strong. Do not treat them lightly. The departed speak to those who listen. Can you hear them above the sound of your own self-importance? Do you believe, Mr. Holmes?
It would make my job redundant if solving a crime were as easy as asking the deceased about their final moments.
Oh, you scoff, you sneer, but I do not expect a man to understand.
I am willing to be proved wrong.
Holmes, don't you think it is about time we search the upper rooms for clues? I merely ask because the ladies look as though they could do with some refreshment. Tea perhaps, or a coffee?
Very well. Lady Persimmon, if you would be so kind as to escort Dr. Watson and myself to the upper chambers?
Certainly, Mr. Holmes, if you think it will do any good. Ladies, we will return presently.
I told you no good would come of it. We have all been accused, one after the other.
Then how do we counter his probings? Can we solve the crime ourselves?
If only it were possible to talk to the dead, or they, I say it, who shouldn't.
Possible. It is eminently possible, especially with no men here to spoil the protoplasmic current. What was that? Quickly, sisters, a seance. Whilst the powers are strong, form a circle around Lady Dithering-Tottering. Lower the lights so that only this lamp remains. Darkness is a friend to the departed souls. We must not scare them away. Oh, departed ones.
Oh, departed ones.
Oh, mellifluous spirits.
Oh, mellifluous spirits.
Oh, ether, oh, ether.
Oh, ether, oh, ether.
Women of Mount Ida call you through our spirit guiding sister. It is I, Madame Ivanov, whom you have welcomed before in your grey horizons. Open now and speak to us. Speak, speak. What is it you wish to know, immortal? What has become of our sister? You speak of Madame Cullicut. Yes. What do you know of her? It was a dark stranger. The name of the killer is known to the spirits. It is dark as death, as the very pit of hell.
Speak, I command you. Tell us who it was.
Foul mortals, you ask too much. You demand too much.
Ladies! Ladies! Light a lamp. Control yourselves.
You interrupted my celestial guide just as she was about to reveal the name of the murderer. Oh, great woe, great calamity.
Oh, my dear girl, be at peace. All is well again. You see, the lights are back again. We are all safe.
Lady Albany, I fear your sympathy may be misplaced. Miss Clarete is not crying because of the séance, Lady Albany. There is another, deeper cause to her distress. Isn't that right, young lady?
You are right, Mr. Holmes.
Was it the ring?
Only in a small way. Shall I go on?
You mean you know? You know the real reason?
Yes, my dear. I have suspected for some considerable time.
Then let the truth, the horrible truth, be known.
I demand to know what you're talking about. Is this the murderer before us? Miss Clarete? If you have abused the standards of this club, I will not shrink from handing you over to the police.
It's not quite so simple, Lady Persimmon. The ring has a fair part to play. Let us begin with that. The real reason Miss Clarete removed Madame Callicut's ring is it had the double-headed axe on it.
Double-headed axe? What has that to do with anything?
That reminds me of something. That axe. The Greek tragedy, wasn't it? Electra.
Exactly. You remember your classic lessons well, Dr. Savage. It is the Labris, the same twin-headed axe used by another daughter to murder her mother in the Greek myth. The axe of Electra. She who betrayed her mother and took foul revenge. Electra. That dreaded name, which I noticed immediately, is an anagram of your name, Miss Clarete. Electra for Clarete, am I right? Madame Callicut was not only your employer, but she was also your mother, was she not? And you murdered her.
Yes, she was my mother, but I did not kill her. It is true that I was her unwanted, abandoned daughter. My mother did not want me. My father never even knew about me. He was away on an excavation in Africa. She kept it a secret and had me disposed of as a baby. She did not want another woman sharing her husband's attention and affections. So, in a horrible decision, she had me removed to an orphanage. It was a dreadful secret. I myself found out the ghastly facts only by chance when I started working for her and had access to her private diaries. The shock was tremendous. I found out a lot more as well. How after my father's death, she played upon my father's good name. She wanted his life's work to be published under her name, as if it were her own achievement. Once embarked upon this sinister course, she wallowed in her temporary fame. Then, as his papers grew few and far between, as she exhausted his final writings, she turned to other schemes to prolong her newfound status. Before I met her a month ago, she had already made a habit of stealing archaeological treasures as she moved from one museum to another in her capacity as an archaeologist. All the time she was living on my father's reputation, stealing his ideas and priceless artifacts. She was not the mother I had imagined or dreamed of, but a traitor to the cause of all women who strive and achieve.
And you killed her for it?
No. I could no more kill her than kill myself. But when her crimes had begun to catch up with her, and one dreadful night last week I told her of our true relationship, and she was terrified it would all come out. She was frightened for her own meagre reputation. I hated her for her weakness and her lowness, but I could never kill her. I set her an ultimatum. I confronted her. She called me a liar and a traitor. She began to drink. She began to buy powders and potions from the dispensing chemists on St. James's Street. She acted irrationally. She was ill, unstable in mind and body. Last night she was at a low ebb. I feared the worst, and when I came into this darkened room and found her body slumped in a chair with a vial of toxins lying beside her, I knew she'd accidentally gone too far with her chemical remedies. To spare her the indignity of a suicide's condemnation, I laid her out nobly. I wasn't thinking. Then, seeing the ring upon her finger and knowing that the symbolism of the matricide's double-headed axe would point to me if our true relationship was ever discovered, I stupidly hid it.
And the mace? You placed it in her hand as a bizarre symbol?
I was possessed. How else can I explain it? I don't know if it was a sign of retribution or judgment or just plain madness. Oh, Mr. Holmes, what an unnatural mess I have been a party to. What shame. I have no defence. Do with me what you will. I am broken. But these, I swear to you, are my only crimes. That I was abandoned, betrayed, and confused.
Oh, my poor child. Why didn't you come to me?
I was so ashamed.
No, my dear child, you are not to blame. No one is to blame. Tell her, Mr. Holmes.
There is always blame. It comes with power. That is something men know well and which women discover to their cost on a daily basis as they rise up in our changing world. The deceased, Madame Cullicut, lied and conspired for the sake of mortal recognition and acclaim. But fate eventually caught up with her, throwing her unfortunate daughter back into her life. Miss Clarete has paid the price of seeking and finding the painful and tragic truth.
I think the ladies of the Boadicea Club should be proud to have such a courageous young woman as a new member. Who knows what any one of us would have done faced with the same dark situation? It seems to me that Miss Clarete is as much a victim in these dreadful circumstances as her erstwhile mother. Are we all agreed?
But the spirits have spoken otherwise. It was a dark stranger. Did you not hear?
What? Dark stranger? What stranger? Don't let him in here.
No, madam, I object. I am neither dark nor strange. Please control your stick.
We must tell something to the police.
We tell them the truth, namely that Madame Cullicut committed suicide. Anything else is mere conjecture. Is that not the case?
I would not have believed it if I had not heard it with my own ears. I thought Madame Cullicut was an angel, but...
But she was human, like all of us.
You poor girl, poor girl. Forgive me harsh words now, won't you, child? You know, I too was abandoned as a child, left by a heartless mother. Perhaps this is why I idolised Madame Cullicut so blindly. What a fool I was. Oh, how can we forgive such sins as these?
The best forgiveness we can grant Madame Cullicut is to let her rest in peace, without scandal.
I fear that our investigation has borne bitter fruit, but nothing can be faced up to, cannot be faced up to with a little manly determination.
Don't you mean womanly determination, Mr. Holmes?
Men's achievements come with responsibilities and burdens. If I were a woman, I would count myself lucky that I did not have to bear the praise and the blame for what we men have made of modern society.
You are very perceptive, Mr. Holmes. But what of the police? What of the judge's warrant?
You may rest at ease, Lady Persimmon. I will inform Inspector Lestrade of Scotland Yard of the details of this case. It's a simple suicide. Autopsy will bear that out. I am sure that apart from some bureaucracy and the routine procedure, you will be no longer troubled with further meddling from the Metropolitan Police. The case of the Boadicea Club suicide can be regarded as closed. It grows late, ladies. My thanks for your invitation to this unique and fascinating institution. I need only add the warmest compliments of the season to you all. Come, Watson, or I fear we overstay our welcome. Good night.
Good night, Mr. Holmes, and thank you.
Ladies, I suggest we retire to the dining room. Dinner will be getting cold.